So I have decided to start making these sort of commentary like videos, and I'm probably gonna overlay the commentary with like just B-roll of my life. I've been thinking about this for quite a while, honestly, and I've always been fascinated by things that you your typical normal everyday person doesn't seem to be even remotely interested in. Um, Ever since well, I began to look for answers, let's just say, um, I began looking for answers through my own way when I sort of started realizing somewhere along in my life, my journey, that looking at the common places, the typical places that everyone else was looking, didn't offer any answers for me. Because it
Chest
seemed
is sore,
like
my lats are sore,
everyone was
hamstrings are sore,
following
hip
a
flexors are sore,
blind tunnel
lower back is
trying to
sore.
get to the other side. And I don't know, I have a weird image in my head of it, but it's so mechanical and so almost pitiable, um, because you see so many people, or at least I notice now how so many people are trying to find themselves, right? Trying to find themselves, um, become a better person, become successful, right? All of these things. But let's just call it trying to find yourself. And the ironic thing is that everyone's trying to find themselves by looking outside of themselves. Um, and that's like seriously one of the craziest things that I guess you could say, discovered. But anyway, I I've been thinking about, starting something with, this digital age and everything, because the future is just completely online. Like, that's another thing I think people don't see. They think they still have to get traditional jobs and everything, without realizing the extent to which the digital economy is going to boom. Um, and this is one of the things I think I realize. Um, well, I mean, granted, who knows how it's going to turn out, right? I could be the moron that everyone um, would say I am. But um, I really think future is going to be, let's just say, a unique one. Times are changing, and I've always wanted to start something um, online, right? To share, like, express myself in some way that was authentic. But I just never really, I just always let resistance and fear stop me. Like, typical things like, what, I have nothing good to offer, I have nothing good to say, blah, blah, your typical negative self talk. But you know what? Fuck it. What I want to do with this channel, at least how I have it pictured in my mind right now, is sort of this like raw, unfiltered philosophy, sort of um, commentary of just me discussing whatever the fuck's on my mind. Um, yeah, I don't know, like, cause I am a person who tends to think a lot, I guess you could say. Like, ponder like things that are deep. But all throughout my life, was been I have been told, and I sort of internalized myself that I was an overthinker, right? I held this identity. Oh, you're constantly anxious. You're neurotic. You're a nervous wreck. You're an overthinker, and that's what other people would tell me too. Um, and I harbored that as my identity of who I was. Um, Someone who was extremely socially anxious. A lot of anxiety, a lot of overthinking. Like my mind was, I was using my own mind to drive myself crazy. Um, you could put it like that. And that's sort of why I began looking for answers, right? Like, how do I live a better life? How do I live a life that's where I'm not a nervous wreck? How do I live a life that's authentic and real and, you know, joyous in and for itself? How do I live a life that is self-fulfilling? Um, and I began looking for answers, right, everywhere. I am still going to university. Tried looking for answers there, right? Try to study the disciplines like psychology, philosophy, whatever, man. Like trying to look for answers there. I remember going into my first year. I wanted to. So I'm a kinesiology major, right? I study human movement, um, into fitness and stuff, and training. But I had, but then this chronically lingering question in my mind was like, how do you, I guess you could say, take control of your mind, or like, how do you cause yourself to live a life that you don't constantly feel like shit about, you know? And so one of the first places I looked was contemporary, um, empirical psychology, right? The discipline of psychology in academia. Um, Tried finding answers there, and I realized, well, and I thought I like was like clever since I was studying psychology and stuff, so I all knew about the human brain. But then this question popped up. At some point, it's like, huh, if psychology has the answers to how the human mind works, then why do you have all of these PhDs and doctors and psychology professors and all these highly educated people who supposedly know everything there is to know about the mind, um, or not everything, but like a vast amount more than typical common person, right? Why do these people still suffer from the same problems? Why do they still have the same neuroses? Why do they um, and why aren't they enlightened? Why aren't they any better off than your typical person, right? They're still equally trapped in their minds. Um, well, for the most part, right? And also was like studying philosophy and stuff, trying to cling on to different philosophies and stuff. It's like, oh, maybe this one will give me the answer. Oh, no, no, no. And then this one sort of does, and then but then not fully. So then you go on to the next philosophy. Oh, maybe this one. So you see, like everything we do is just a constant attempt to try to get away from ourselves because we're trying to find the answer to this problem called life. Um, we're perpetually trying to run away from life to try to solve its mystery, which is the funny thing I realize now. Um, but yeah, like um, you know, uh, tried to find answers in like psychology, philosophy, whatever. And then I sort of got down this spiritual rabbit hole, right? Try to find answers there. I think what got me into that was my first shroom trip. Um, I had a mystical experience that was beyond anything I'd ever experienced in my life. And I remember very distinctly for the next 3 months or so, I would just keep thinking about that experience like, oh my God, that experience was one of the top five most important experiences of my life, entire life. Like, that's how profound it was. And that sent me down the spiritual rabbit hole, because on psychedelics, you're in that state of just pure love. You lose your sense of self, as in your ordinary ego self, your conception of who you think you are, um, and you sort of merge into this oneness that people talk about with the essence of life. Um, and so after that first shroom trip, I was constantly trying to get back to that experience of just pure love. Um, and it was the same thing as what I was doing in philosophy and psychology and all these things. I was trying to find the answer. And I got glimpses of the answer here and there, but um, sort of you realize more and more as you seek more and more that you need to stop seeking it. And this is something that, I think majority of people won't understand. Um, but this is this paradox that all of these great sages and wise ancients have talked about, right? Um, you find when you stop searching. Anyway, I'm not gonna go into that riff. Maybe for another time. But yeah, man, like I just want to talk about life. You know, just for the hell of it. Like I've devoted so much of my own time and energy into like this sort of into the investigation into another cheesy cliche term, the meaning of life. And I want to like, I don't know, I feel like I want to share what I've learned, you know? Um, like I've been very inspired by a man named Ivan Durgic. He does this thing called squat every day. And basically, the man squats every single day. And he records his training sessions and overlays it his with his commentary, with his voice, and basically he just talks about, he talks about his training session, his philosophies about life, how he sees things. It's just a man being true to himself and talking about life. Um, that's simply it. Um, but it's that raw realness of it that makes that I that makes me really respect him, right? He is raw and real. Yeah, and so I think, at least for the time being, my idea is to start in this direction, I guess, and we'll see where it goes.